So I'd now like to introduce our next panel, which is Today's Digital Citizen, Tomorrow's Digital Reality, presented by our exclusive underwriter, Accenture. This panel will explore the importance of creating a digital culture and empowering employees to use emerging technologies in order to meet the increasing expectations that citizens have for government in an era of constant change. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Tom Greiner and Elaine Turville. Tom Greiner is the Managing Director of Technology for Accenture Federal Services, and Elaine Turville is the Managing Director for Human Service and Nonprofits at Accenture Federal Services as well. Thank you for joining us. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing so far? Good. We're both very excited to be here, and we've been learning a lot of really cool insights from everyone this morning. As he said, I'm Elaine Turville. I've been working across the federal government implementing technology solutions to human service programs and nonprofit organizations for many years. And I'm here to share a little bit about the data and the insights on what is driving some of these changes across our constituents. And Tom here is he's our digital technology lead and is going to share more of the exciting, innovative solutions that some of the clients have brought forward across the space that hopefully will spark some ideas with you. So we're going to get moving around the research. And what we have seen through our research is that the expectations around digital citizens are really high, and they're constantly changing. So we use a term called liquid expectations. And these liquid expectations are set because an individual is going to interact with a commercial organization, a government, a nonprofit, and they're going to have those same expectations, and they're going to ebb and flow as a constituent goes through their digital life cycle or their daily interactions. And in fact, 85% of Americans believe government should match or exceed commercial service levels. Can you imagine that? Exceed. That's crazy. So their expectation is that when they interact with government services, it should be the same as when they interact on Amazon.com or Cyber Monday or Giving Tuesday. Think about all of those examples where you're interacting with different sort of services. The expectations continue to go higher and higher as the commercial services improvements and grow, these services that individuals are interacting with grow, and individuals are expecting that same sort of experience. And then think back to a poor experience you may have. How frustrating it may be, how it may actually turn you off and you'll decide, actually, I'm going to integrate or do that form or do that process later and abandon the site. And it's going to continue to grow. So what we're actually seeing is that there's more and more of these digital super users. Many of you in this room are digital super users. You're consuming more and more on the internet. You're doing more and more activities. And we're actually seeing this not just in the urban areas, but actually in the rural areas where individuals have a harder time getting to an in-person service due to geographical issues or having to drive into a center or something. Individuals are spending more and more time on the internet, so it doesn't take them as much time to get into those centers. And the frustration grows if they're not able to do the same sorts of things that they can do in a commercial realm across many of the sites that they're looking for. And as many of the panelists had mentioned, as you start to see the millennials and other generations come into interacting with services more and more, the expectations will continue to grow higher. But there's a positive light in this. As individuals interact with improved digital services, there's many additional benefits that come along with it. There's greater satisfaction in the organization and the agency. There's a perception that the agency is very forward-looking. They have increased engagement. And the best thing is that there's increased trust in how that individual is interacting with the agency. So as the digital experience increases for an individual with services, their affinity for that organization increases. And there are ways that you can move forward actually to address these challenges. And a lot of these are things that have been discussed this morning, but we've distilled them into 4 main areas. Data, as Dan was just talking about, really thinking about what data you can release, that you can interact with in an open way, that you can share and make more visible. Governance, as Jessica and Michelle were sharing this morning, increasing the positions of customer-focused individuals in leadership positions who actually are out there with the customer in mind throughout the entire process. Communication and engagement. really breaking down the barriers to get your direct interaction with stakeholders in the process. Iterative engagement, as much as you can, getting them into the process as you change services. And the last piece, which we really have focused on a lot on, is really embedding that customer service mentality throughout the entire workforce. So thinking about it in recruiting processes, in evaluation processes, where individuals and the entire workforce is really thinking about your end constituents in mind. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to start thinking about or sharing with you guys some ways that we've seen this done out in the world.
Ways.
Ways, yeah, exactly, good one. Good job, Tom.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Again, my name's Tom. I have a quick survey. How many of you have been to Disney in the past 3 years? And how many of you had a magic band while you were there? All right, a handful. All right, so maybe you'll welcome the magic band story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Disney, maybe about 5 years ago, did some user research, tried to understand their client base. They're great at this in general, but they really wanted to significantly move the ratio of time spent engaged with all things Disney. In their study, they found that only 30% of the time were the visitors to the Magic Kingdom engaged with Disney. 70% of the time they were standing in line in an unengaged way, or they were sitting on park benches tired with screaming kids, or whatever. And they honestly wanted to flip that ratio to 70-30 of engagement. And that required, frankly, a technology innovation to stay within any reasonable budget expectation. And that's exactly what they did. So they came up with these magic bands that would provide two sources of data. And off of those two sources of data, they thought they could do just about anything. One, what do you prefer? What are your preferences? And you have an opportunity to log those ahead of time before you go to Disney. And two, where are you? And if Disney knows where you are and they know what you like, they can make sure they can deliver to you real time the experience you're looking for. I have a 4-year-old daughter. When I go to Disney and I'm sitting on that bench after standing in a line, my Frozen obsessed daughter, I want Elsa and Anna to come walking by and talk to her. Goofy doesn't do me any good. I want Elsa and Anna. This is important. I will log this. It's made a huge difference for them from a trajectory standpoint. They've included mobile wallet in the capabilities, so they've taken a lot of the friction of the experience out. If you get your band ahead of time, which you get it a week ahead of time, you go down, you could just click into your room. You don't need a room key, don't need to check in at the front desk, no standing in lines. It's awesome, and it's just simple ways to use fairly simple technology to dramatically improve the user experience. All right, you heard earlier from Rebecca about Find Your Park. When the National Park Service and National Park Foundation came to us and had a kind of a similar fundamental question and how they can use digital technology to solve it, their question was, the reality is that it's either retirees or foreign visitors who are going to our national parks. We've lost an entire generation of working America and their families that are no longer going to the parks, at least not in the kinds of numbers they used to, which creates one, it's just sad given the investment the country has made, and two, the costs continue to rise in maintaining the parks, and if we don't have the revenue stream coming in, it's just a diversion from the income base otherwise. So they said, how can we use digital technology to do something more meaningful? And a couple-day rumble, as you've heard described earlier, and out popped a number of ideas. One of them ended with the secretary holding Google Cardboard for a virtual reality tour. One of the ideas was, look, if you can't bring people to the parks to start with, let's try bringing the parks to people and bring it to the inner city, get folks jazzed, these kids jazzed about it. They'll get their Deputy Junior Ranger badge, but if they want to get the full Junior Ranger badge, they have to bring their family to the park and complete whatever the tuition or the experience might be out at the park. And so that was one of the ideas popping out. Another interesting one was around the battlefields. For me, if I go out to the Manassas battlefields, I'll drive up, go out there. I might be lucky enough to get a listening set. Otherwise, I'll walk around and be like, wow, it's a really big green field. What's next? And one of the ideas we tossed around and seemed to resonate was, why can't we adopt a persona of somebody who was actually in the battle at Manassas and 3 days ahead of time get a ping and find out what are they doing, how far are they progressing to their ultimate encampment in the battleground, and tell us about their family, tell us about the sickness and the weather conditions they were facing. So we get emotionally invested in the days leading up to the visit. And then during the visit, we're kind of mixing the physical and digital world where we're almost like Pokemon running around looking, wow, I just got winged, like got to run from the Confederates, and where did they go next? And hey, what happened to them after that battle? So there's engagement before, during, and after the visit. Those are just a few of the ideas coming out of the session of, again, engaging digital in a meaningful way to change the user experience. Another one maybe closer to home and less avant-garde technology, but just good classic blocking and tackling is Access New York City. When Mayor Bloomberg took office, his team looked at the human services silos and saw that there are like 18 different departments that somebody might have to apply to for benefits using different processes, different forms, different engagement models altogether. And his team, they flipped the model on its head. They said, no. What we're going to do is make all these services available, and we're going to ask our citizens just to tell us about themselves once. And we'll tell them all the things they might be eligible for. And if they click off whatever they say they would like to receive a benefit for, we will send that information, pre-populate the forms, and then they can just fill in the little bit of remaining information and get eligibility for all the benefits that they're entitled to. And in fact, since then, they've added another 20 state level and federal level benefit programs as well. So literally the citizen just needs to present themselves once, fill in some basic information, and it starts the journey of all the benefits to which they're entitled. They've now come up with responsive design, mobilely enabled it, and just this year over 400,000 applications for benefits uploaded through the mobile platform. So clearly government can think differently.
And core to data sharing, right? Sharing those user profiles across.
Yeah. Just like Jessica Michelle talked about earlier, very similar. And that was across now 35 different systems sharing data, and great example. Lastly, this is more of a fun one than really terribly applicable, but is thinking about the use of emerging technology in a new way. This is, we talked about a wearable with the Disney band. This is not a Disney band. The other idea, this is a consumable. A company called Proteus in the UK was a maker, kind of a sleepy maker of generic drugs. And their user experience discussions, I can only imagine yearly, were like, do we make the baby aspirin pink this year? Do we have a blister pack of 36 instead of 24? What do we do with the packaging? Like, there's only so much you can do. But they paired it with the data point that there were over 20,000 deaths every year by medicinal noncompliance in the UK. And they had the clever idea to put a digestible sensor in their pills that just simply tell a little patch on the skin, which can then beacon out to family caregivers, physicians, but just a little pulse that will tell what pill was it, what dosage, at what time was it taken. Hugely valuable information for those looking out for the patients, and fundamentally changed the nature of medicinal noncompliance in the UK. The National Health Service immediately signed them up as a preferred partner. So that's an example not necessarily of government on their own innovating, but government being quick to find something that's really going to move the needle on citizen experience and incorporating it. So those are just 4 vignettes to tickle the imagination as you think how you might apply some of these emerging technologies in your own agencies. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
Go.